Welcome back everyone, it's me Matt, thanks so much for joining me. We're looking at some Swedish self-propelled guns today. No, not the Archer, which is a video I have done before and one of my favourite self-propelled guns, but this unique and kind of peculiar looking SPG is a bit of a Swedish Cold War relic, and Sweden is known for its innovation in military engineering. They make a lot of good equipment, and this is no exception. Of course, I have a strong connection to the Swedish Armed Forces military equipment because I do love the CV90. I've worked with BAE Systems and playing with it, but this one would certainly be something I'd love to see up close and personal. This is a self-propelled gun that is quite iconic in its setting and the way in which it operates, which is a little bit more different to most self-propelled guns at the time. From the iconic Stridsvagn 103S tank to cutting-edge Gripen fighter jets, Sweden has never shielded away from kind of pushing those boundaries, I would say, of military technology. But before we get into the details of this video today, what's your favourite self-propelled gun? Let me know in the comment section below. It can be of any kind, modern or older. I'd love to hear your opinion. Today, folks, we are talking about the Bandkanon 1, which is just a beast, and the way in which it operates, I do for sure think it is one of the most cool self-propelled guns out there, and I never really heard of it before until I actually started playing War Thunder. But Sweden built one of the fastest firing self-propelled auto-loading artillery pieces in history. The Bandkanon 1 is a beast of a machine capable of firing 14 rounds in under 48 seconds, an artillery system that's so fast it could unload its entire magazine before the first shell even hit the target. It was developed during the Cold War, which was Sweden's answer to a rapidly evolving battlefield. With no multiple rocket launch systems in service, the Swedish military sought an alternative way to deliver devastating firepower quickly, accurately, and efficiently. What they ended up with was a self-propelled gun unlike anything else, boasting a very revolutionary for its time autoloader system that enabled an unmatched rate of fire for its time and for the caliber of round that it was firing. To truly understand the Bandkanon 1, we need to go back to 1949, a time where Sweden was completely rethinking its approach to artillery. The Swedish military recognized the need for a fast, mobile, and powerful self-propelled gun capable of delivering devastating firepower before counter-battery fire could respond. The project eventually led to the Bandkanon 1 and had its roots in the KRV tank project, a broader Swedish initiative aimed at developing a family of vehicles based on a common chassis. The goal was to create a modular system, I said the modular word, I know you guys hate that word, where artillery, tanks and support vehicles shared a standardized platform. While the tank never actually materialized, the two key vehicles did emerge from it was the S-tank, known for its unconventional design, or a giant piece of cheese, and the Bandkanon 1. By the early 1960s, Swedish manufacturers Bofors, Landsverk and Volvo had begun serious development. Their first attempt was the Artillerikanonvagn 151, featured a 150mm howitzer, but the Swedish army wanted more firepower. This led to a redesign, moving the turret to the SDRV-103 based chassis and upgrading the gun to a 155mm M60 howitzer. The Bandkanon 1 was officially adopted in 1967, and Sweden originally planned to build 70 units. However, due to budget constraints, only 26 were ever produced. These vehicles were distributed among artillery regiments serving in 2 divisions, later reorganized into 3 units of 8. Despite its small numbers, the vehicle was very good at what it could do and gave huge artillery capabilities to the Swedish military. It introduced a high-speed autoloader, advanced fire control systems, and a design philosophy that put Sweden ahead of its time in self-propelled artillery. But if there's one thing that sets aside the Bandkanon 1 apart from other self-propelled artillery systems of its time, is its true firepower. Most artillery pieces relied on manually loaded shells requiring significant time between shots. But the vehicle was built differently. It could fire those 14 shells in 48 seconds at a rate that made one of it the fastest self-propelled guns ever built. At the heart of this system was the 155mm M60 rifled howitzer, a Swedish-designed gun capable of engaging targets at ranges of up to 25 kilometers. Unlike self-propelled artillery guns, which required crews to manually load each shell, the Bandkanon 1 featured a fully automated magazine-fed autoloading system to the rear of the vehicle. This meant that instead of crews scrambling to load shells, a preloaded 14-round magazine, almost literally like a magazine put into a rifle, did the work in rapid succession. The reloading process was another key innovation. The vehicle carried a spare magazine which could be swapped out using an onboard crane system, later removed on the Bkan 1C upgrade. While reloading the magazine took nearly 10 minutes, it was still significantly faster than other artillery systems of the era. Firing was almost all automated. The gunner needed only to press 3 buttons, one to load the shell, one to aim using the partially automated fire control system, and one to fire. This made the Bandkanon 1 one of the most efficient artillery pieces of its time, and very accurate, but of course reducing human error was a big key of this. The linking systems, the data control systems to the observers was very, very key, and digitalization for Sweden has always been a big selling factor for those militaries that want to purchase equipment that they're using, because they have a very good integration to the overall battlefield network, and this is certainly something that the Bandkanon 1 was trying to link to, particularly when trying to avoid counter-battery fire. If you want to fire accurately and get out of the location, there's no point creating a fire mission if it's not going to hit the target accurately on the first hit. But the raw firepower is only part of the equation. The engine, the chassis, and the mobility challenges of the vehicle were also something that was focused very heavily on by the designers. It was built on a modified version of the STRV-103 chassis, an absolute classic, and Sweden's legendary turretless main battle tank. While this provided a strong, stable platform, it came with some drawbacks, mainly weight and engine power. The Bandkanon 1 was a 52-ton monster, one of the heaviest self-propelled guns of its time. Unfortunately, it inherited the same engine as the S-Tank, which was never designed to haul such a heavy load. The original Bkan 1 used a Rolls-Royce K60 diesel engine, producing just 240 horsepower. That's a very weak engine, guys. Alongside a Boeing GT502 gas turbine for extra power when needed, which is kind of similar to the AS90. It had kind of a boost option that you could use, but it really did not work as effectively as people thought it would. And while this gave the vehicle a decent short-term acceleration, it was ultimately fully underpowered, and for sustained mobility it was one of the slowest self-propelled guns in service. So as much as you're getting rounds downrange, to get it out of position, it was having a really tough time. On roads, it barely managed 28 kilometers an hour or 17 miles per hour, and cross-country movement was even slower, particularly in the snow, which is, for Sweden, probably a big deal. Recognizing these limitations, Sweden introduced the Bkan 1C in the 1980s, featuring a Detroit diesel 6V53T turbocharged engine with still only 290 horsepower. While this provided slightly better mobility, it still wasn't enough to make the vehicle move faster. Unlike modern artillery systems which prioritize rapid relocation, the Bandkanon 1 was designed to get into position, fire fast, and then move as needed, and not perform long-distance maneuvers. Interestingly, the vehicle inherited the S-Tank's unique suspension system, also allowing it to rock back and forth to fine-tune its aiming without rotating the turret. This was a clever solution to compensate for its limited turret traverse. But how did the Bandkanon 1 engage enemy targets? Was it accurate? Well, the platform itself, not so ideal for travelling, but the sheer volume of fire and advanced fire control technology for its time was very, very good. Unlike most self-propelled guns at the time that relied heavily on just forward observers and command centers for accuracy, the Bandkanon 1 was designed specifically to not only fire rapidly, but be able to strike precision targets. To achieve this, it was equipped with an inertial navigation system, allowing it to quickly determine its own position and aim without external fire direction control or FDC. This meant that, in a pinch, it could fire on its own with its own initiative without any change to slight accuracy penalties. This basically turns it into a command post and a gun line, which is something you don't normally see of in this time period. Of course, in modern self-propelled guns, we have a lot more technology now. GPS is integrated to the shells even. They can basically work autonomously, but in this time period, it was very new for them. The gunner's role, though, was really simple. Those 3 buttons allowed him to fire that round very accurately, get rounds downrange, and hopefully drive out of there fairly quick. Its electronic fire control suite was fairly advanced for the 1960s, reducing the number of crew members required to operate the gun. While modern artillery uses GPS and digital fire control computers, the Bandkanon 1 relied on purely mechanical and analog computing systems, which again was still quite effective for its time. After officially entering service in 1967, the Bandkanon was assigned to the artillery regiments within the Swedish Army. Interestingly, the vehicle still survived in terms of its service until 2003, but its legacy lives on in Sweden's modern artillery doctrine. Its innovative high-speed autoloading system, rapid-fire capability, and emphasis on shoot and scoot, even though not very quickly on the scoot side of things, influenced their tactics to the next generation of Swedish self-propelled artillery systems. Due to limits in the size of the autoload and breech operating mechanism, the Bkan 1 was only able to fire 155mm shells in existence available only in the late 1960s. This includes the 155mm tactical nuclear shell, though they were not ubiquitous enough for the vehicle to carry a full magazine of TAC nukes. Can you imagine a 48-second salvo of 14 20-kiloton nuclear weapons being fired? It actually kind of baffles my mind that that was a possibility with this platform. The vehicle used special unitary ammunition that included the projectile and combustible case in a charge module, with the fuses being set remotely by programming from the assistant gunner. Though its rounds are based on the 155mm rounds available at the time, they were modified for the use of the autoloader on this platform. There is a driver's compartment on the front left behind a highly sloped glacis plate, and the turret is divided into 3 different compartments, with the gunner and the loader being on the left, with a hatch above them. The commander is on the right, and he has a power-operated cupola with a weapon mount on it. The center compartment houses the autoloader and the interface for the magazine. The Bandkanon did have an inertial land navigation system that allowed it to take accurate shots with input without the FDC, but it could also pull from the FDC, and as you can see here, with it being on its own, it was quite universal in the fact it didn't need a lot of support. It's just on its own, trundling along, being able to do its own missions. That's a big key factor of this. It didn't require a network of communications and, a lot of input from outside sources. It was a very standalone platform, and that's why Sweden liked it and why they produced such small numbers as well, because it didn't need a huge infrastructure of rear echelon or battery management to support these gun systems. It did use the POS-2 land navigation system, which was essentially an improved inertial navigation system with a mapping module. Unfortunately, the retrofits had a very high cost, and the production line that was reopened was only reopened for a very short time for the Charlie variant, and there was only about 30 of them that ever existed at any one time. The C variant also removed this absolutely beautifully engineered crane loading system. The reason for this is, if it failed, and it did fail quite often, the rounds would be suspended mid-air and there wouldn't be much you could do about getting out of that position. This was complicated, and the Charlie variant decided, yeah, we need to get rid of this thing. We can load it externally with a lot less intervention, and if it fails, well, we can just manage with reducing the need for the crane being changed on the platform rather than the loading vehicle that is putting the magazine into the auto-loading bucket. But I do really think this is very innovative for the Swedish military to create such a system where it can basically reload itself. You can put a platform of ammunition on the side there and just drive around, come pick it up, load it in, and off you go. You don't need an external crane. This was very self-sufficient as a gun platform, but also quite expensive and complicated if they wanted to keep upgrading it for the future. Sadly though, the vehicle never actually saw battle, and of course it is one of those unique systems where it has a lot of potential, but never really could be proven in actual combat scenarios. It performed in a lot of training scenarios, of course, to the Cold War, and from its origins of the KRV tank project to its insane rate of fire for 14 rounds in under 48 seconds, which I keep saying, but blows my mind as an artillery gunner myself. That is just crazy. It really did not meet the full requirements for the future of the artillery, but the fact that it continued going until 2003 safely says that Sweden was still quite confident if it came to it needing to use it in battle. It's a truly remarkable weapon system. It certainly wasn't perfect, its mobility was sluggish, and its reloading time was quite time-consuming at the time when it was being produced, but by the early 2000s it had outlived usefulness in modern warfare. But its impact on Swedish development for artillery really can't be overstated. Many of its design principles, of course automatic loading and high-speed barrages, is something that Sweden takes very seriously with that Archer platform. It may have never fired a shot in anger, but it was invaluable assets to Swedish military procurement at the time and engineering that really gave them a lot of a lessons learned platform for them to build upon for the future. And if that devastating firepower was ever used, I would not want to be on the receiving end of it. Folks, I hope you enjoyed today's video and learnt something about this unique little artillery self-propelled gun. If you did enjoy it, please leave me a like and of course a comment. I love reading your comments. I try my best to read all of them. Also, thank you for so many of you have been putting super chats in my videos on the comments. So I see super chats pop up in my comments and you donate money to my channel. That means so much to me, folks. Please, you don't have to do that though. As much as I respect and really appreciate you doing so, keep your money, go buy yourself a coffee. But if you do want to support the channel, you can go to my description box below, check out some of the links, my social media, etc, etc, you know, the usual stuff. Once again, algorithm's fighting me, so if you could leave me a like, it's just a little thumb button, or a dislike if you dislike the video as well. And of course, if I make any errors, because I do, I'm not perfect, let me know of the errors and I'll try my best to modify my research for next time. Thank you so much for letting me enjoy passing on this information to you today and for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video. All the best, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.